The whole day has been really interesting from panel to panel, and I think the message that's been driven home for everybody, all of the stakeholders across the industry, is that change is inevitable and it's just the speed of change, and how quickly can we bring that change about, and how do we facilitate for that change as best as possible. I think every panel has been trying to address that issue, but I think the question of realistically how do we do that was addressed in some of the panels where they talked about the financing, about the regulatory framework, and so on. And I think that's where it's very interesting to see, what changes actually need to happen, partially outside of the industry itself, in order to bring about that change within the industry. Increasingly, I think the thing that has happened over the past few years is a lot of discussion in the industry, both in the shipping industry, maritime, and the energy industry. Obviously, the conversation's very relevant in the energy industry, but also in the maritime industry, trying to come up with alternative fuels that can be used by the maritime industry. The changes that we're going to see more of is more engagement from governments, more engagement from regulators, more engagement from financiers, and I think that's quite important to happen, because it's not just the willingness of the industry to bring about that change, it has to be facilitated. And to facilitate that, you've got to have the other stakeholders that are not necessarily sitting directly within the maritime sector, but a little bit sort of outside, where there is a common interest between them, pushing the regulators, pushing politicians to be a little bit more engaged on the subject, almost at voter level, and making sure that it makes sense for politicians, for governments, and for financiers to bring about that change. I think even at the financier level, it still comes back to the same point. Financiers have their own shareholders. And if it's an important agenda for shareholders to decarbonize the industry, to bring about more sustainable change to the world generally, but certainly within the maritime sector, we'll see more of that happen, more financing being offered more cheaply towards better alternatives, towards ships that are better geared towards, reducing that carbon emission, being a little bit more sustainable. I would say crucial. To maintain that dialogue, to maintain momentum, you have to keep the conversation going. But it's not just about the conversation, it's about engaging the other stakeholders. It's about bringing the regulators into it, having them as a part of the conversation. And it's not always that easy to bring the different stakeholders within the industry to speak to each other. So events like this are a fantastic opportunity for everybody, from ship owners to charterers to governments and regulators to port authorities, even financiers, to sit there and have this conversation in order to maintain that momentum in that sort of progress that we're trying to achieve as quickly as possible. And I think the key thing is speed. And speed can only be achieved with the momentum, maintaining that momentum. Progress forward, it's two phrases, but progress forward, I would say.